Fake outrage is dying a slow death, and we're watching it in real time. It's never been more obvious to me and many others that the goalposts keep shifting and definitions keep changing to suit the narrative of all the bigoted pundits on social media. And unless you've been living under a rock the last couple days, you will know about all of this Starfield drama. And all of it's over pronouns, an optional feature within the character customization process, meant to make the game more immersive. But it's obviously all fake and manufactured outrage because there's not a lot to talk about right now, so they're picking something like this and they're running with it. So by now, most of you have probably seen this video already. We're not gonna watch it here. However, I did a reaction to it. I talked about it. I'm gonna put the link up in the corner over there so you can go check it out. But this is Az, aka Heel vs. Babyface, having a complete and utter meltdown about the option of being able to change your pronouns in a character creator in an action RPG called Starfield. Now, I want to point out there's nothing forcing you to play and go against the binary. If you pick a man and you want to use he, him, you don't have to touch anything or change anything. You simply leave it as default. And I guess this is why it's so baffling to me. It's a feature that you don't have to engage in. You don't have to do any of that. You just leave it as default and just go with it. It's crazy to me that we live in a world where men can go into games and create a fully formed, functional woman or female character in a game with boob sliders and butt sliders and play that in an MMO and an RPG, pretending in the game to be a woman, but pronouns are the thing where you draw the line and go, yeah, that's too much. Also, the customization in the game is extremely in-depth. You can make your characters look like anything at all. I mean, just take a look at some of these character customizations. You can literally make yourself look like anything under the sun. It's very in-depth. It's a very detailed character creator. And they are simply worried about the fact that one of the options in this very in-depth character creator allows you to select pronouns. Nothing else sets them off. Nothing at all. Even though you can make yourself look like some sort of human-animal hybrid, like they don't care about that. The pronouns are the things they're complaining about. And that's why I believe this is all manufactured. They want you to believe that all of this trans, this queer, this gay stuff is just overtaking the gaming industry, and you should be mad about it. So here's a little bit of information about the industry that they don't want you to know. There was a study done in 2019 that covers the history of video games. So like, what, 60 years of video games, almost 70 years of video games in existence. And in this study, they found that only 179 games, that's it, 179 games had characters that were either explicitly queer characters, gay, trans, bi, or they were queer coded characters. Only 179. And in that 179, a lot of them were villains and non-playable characters. Matter of fact, can you guess how many out of those 179 were actually playable characters? I'll give you a second. 1 second. It was 83. Only 83 of them were playable characters. And out of those 83 characters, only 8 of them were lead characters that were explicitly queer characters that were not done in character customization, meaning they were already queer. You didn't have to make any changes to them. Only 8. So 8 characters in the existence of video game history. Again, like 60, 70 years of video game history, only 8 of them in a lead position in a game have been explicitly and openly queer as of 2019. Now, I'll say you could probably add a few more to that list over the last couple years, but not by very much. Games like Starfield are very important to the gay, queer, trans community because a lot of times in order for us to have our own representation in games, it has to be done through character customization. So you can go in and make your character whoever or whatever you want to make them. And this is really important considering that a lot of games don't really cater to the queer community. So to get mad about pronouns being an option in a character creator for a single player game is outrageous. I also want to point out there's been a study that was done, I believe this was as of this year, I think it was 2023, where they polled people in the UK and the US, gamers in both places, to find out how important gaming diversity is, right? How important it is for them when it comes to their gaming experience. In the UK, 42% of people that answered in this particular study said it was important to them. 51% of players in the US find diversity, equity, and inclusion important. So almost half the players in the UK and half the players in the US that answered this study are saying that this is important to them. It isn't going against any sort of narrative or anything like that. This is why I'm telling you that the people that you listen to, these folks on the internet that have a vested interest in keeping you outraged and angry and upset, are trying to keep you that way because they know that they are a vocal minority. They're a small group of people in the bigger picture. And in this study, in the 51% section over there, that means the other portion of the community that did not say it was important to them, a vast majority of them said that it didn't matter, that they were okay with it, it just wasn't important to them. So they weren't even against diversity and inclusivity. It just wasn't a factor for them in the enjoyment of the games they play. So this breaks down the narrative that gaming and the gaming community don't want this kind of content. That is just not true based on more than one study. However, that did not stop the usual suspects from going all in on this, because Az made that ridiculous rant, is getting blasted all over social media, and we're seeing so many people jump into this. Look, we have Melanie Mack, of course, who says that Starfield is woke. That is her thing. Starfield is woke. Then we have Eric July over here going, it's just a pronoun, bro. What plagues the industry, in defense of Az. Now, I have watched these videos. We're not going to watch them here because I don't want you guys to sit here for like 2 hours to go through these. We have Ryan Cannell obviously jumping in and showing, you know, that this is the option you have. But Starfield pronoun controversy blows up. Creators attack heel versus babyface after rant about woke agenda. This is a narrative they are trying to create for you guys to stay mad and outraged all the time. So I want to talk a little bit about the unfair expectations when it comes to the queer community and the rules and restrictions that these kinds of people would like to put on us in terms of what we are allowed to create in certain spaces. What is it? What kind of guidelines do we need as queer creators that will make them feel comfortable and safe in their little bubble so they don't feel like they're being assaulted by an option in character creator? Because it's ridiculous, but let's just try and navigate that for a second. Okay, do you remember earlier when I talked about Starfield being a brand new and original IP for Bethesda? That's really important here because a lot of these content creators seem to get upset when something quote unquote gets woke or goes woke. And they talk about the fact that there's nothing inherently wrong with something being woke at its inception because then you are catering to a specific audience. They said this about Barbie. There's even a video again by Ryan Cannell and Geeks and Gamers that confirmed this. So if something is woke by design, from the very beginning, there should be no issues. And so that's why this is quite interesting, because Starfield is brand new, meaning that all of the stuff that's happening in this game, from the character creation to the storyline to everything, is a brand new thing. It is created from the ground up, meaning there should not be an issue with this game doing this because they are doing it at creation. They are doing it at the start. It is the beginning of possibly a franchise of games. Do you also remember when I talked about goalpost shifting? Well, that's what's happening here. Now we're not talking about things that are getting woke and then going broke. We're talking about restricting things or censoring things or changing things that are queer from the beginning, that the creators intended for it to be this way. This is why it was made this way. They aren't stepping on anything. They're not ruining anything. They're not changing anything. This is the way the game was intended to be played from the start. But hey, this hypocrisy isn't anything new for these guys, okay? Remember Last of Us, the game? And then they had the TV show that came out. In the TV show, they had a gay character doing gay stuff when he was gay in the video game, and they still had an issue with that. It's because the goalpost shifts and moves depending on how they want to grift and make money. I just want to interject here for a moment and talk about why I call this grift tube, or I call them grifters. So a lot of people are under the assumption that being a grifter or someone that grifts means you're not actually providing a service or anything tangible. And that's not true. A grifter simply means you're a con man or a con person, AKA confidence man. This means they simply manipulate you in order to gain your confidence, to get you emotionally connected with them. In this case, they find out that you don't like queer people, you don't like gay people, you don't like trans people, and they don't either, so you get confirmation bias, and then the confidence starts. Then they can continue to manipulate you and sell you lies. They can tell you anything they want, whether it's true or false, and you're gonna buy it because you're wrapped up in the con, AKA the grift. And the benefit for them for what they're doing is to sell you these lies and these things that are just completely false in order to keep you wrapped up in the outrage culture and keep you clicking on their videos all day long. It doesn't matter if there's actually merch if that merch is being sold on the back of the lies that have already got you roped up into their grift, into their con. So that's what makes them con men and grifters. That is the reason why. You understand now? So I'm trying to wrap my head around how, as a gay person, trans person, queer person, how do you navigate media, art, things like that, adhering to the rules and guidelines. So you can't adapt anything that is old and nostalgic, because then that's some sort of agenda. You can't create something new that is queer, because then they're just going to move the goalpost and say that you're pushing some sort of narrative like identity politics or wokeness, even if the character in the story is absolutely brand new. And then you can't include things like pronouns in a game as an option, because then that offends people who don't even have to change that because they're binary and they're offended by the sheer fact that you included a non-binary option in the video game. You can't make music that is queer-centric because somehow that's demonic. You can't listen to that. You can't be a drag queen and perform out in public, because then that is also not good for all ages and all audiences, which again is dog whistling in itself and First Amendment. You can't do that either. You can't advertise specifically to queer people, because then straight people get offended that it's not all about them. So you can't do that. You always have to think about the heteronormative stuff when you're making any kind of media or content. All of those things are rules and regulations in place to continue to oppress and stop queer people from creating content. So gay people and trans people and anybody under that umbrella gets pushed down and remains invisible, because if those are the criteria, if those are the things that are being held against a community, I would ask you, how do you navigate that? How do you exist in a world where that is the kind of criteria that's expected for you when you're trying to create any kind of art? Make new stuff that's already queer from the beginning. Starfield comes out. No, binary, pronouns, blah, 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 get mad, get outraged. It's literally brand new. So my question to you, the viewers, is how do we exist in a world where we are a minority, and anything we do to sort of give our community a little bit of breadcrumbs here and there, any move we make, anything we do to sort of give back to our community is immediately shut down by the straight community or by the cisgender community, and we're not allowed to actually be visible or seen or even heard? How do we navigate that world? How do we create things in that world? How do we exist in that world?